ladies and gentlemen, Miha is about to come on and just blow your mind. He's been an incredible high achiever and taking a different spin on failure. So definitely stick around. We're going to dive into that. Before that, let's talk to you because you are a world-changing human being. Every action, every thought, everything that you do does make an impact on the people around you and the world as a whole. So I want to encourage you to stay tuned in to becoming your greatest possible self so you can be and become your GPS, your greatest possible self, and make a positive impact and leave a legacy that stands the test of time. And number two, anything I could do to support you in becoming your GPS, let me know. Whether that's being a guest on the 12-Hour Marathon, launching your own podcast, or just working with me one-on-one in coaching to help you get to your next level. Would love to explore that. You can find me on Facebook.com/TH3Burns, Instagram at IamMillionaireChris, and email chris@beyourgps.com. Looking forward to talking to you and supporting you however I can, continuing the journey and making it our best life ever. Let's go. Next up is the iTunes review of the week. And this week, it's by Dr. Lokilani. And Lokilani says, inspiring. Chris Burns has a knack for attracting people to his show and turning their stories into powerful messages that inspire many. I love his passion and drive for his work. He authentically comes from the heart to truly impact individuals, society, and the world to make this a better place to live for all. Keep inspiring us, Chris. Thank you so much, Dr. Lokilani. I appreciate you. If you want to get a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-Hour Marathon all day long as the featured review of the week, you can go to iTunes and give us a review. Just search Greatest Possible Self on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and you will be able to leave a review there. Definitely subscribe while you're there so you can get all the latest updates and episodes that come out. We release a new episode just about every day, and you don't want to miss a single one because it could be the one that changes your life forever. So thanks so much for tuning in. Go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self and give us a review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. I'm going to introduce Miha in just a second here. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. I have a feeling that this wisdom this champion is going to share with you is going to make the difference with where you're at, especially around failure. My goodness gracious, we have a society of beautiful, lovely people, and a lot of times they struggle with rejection, fear of failure, different things like that. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation. Make sure you stick around all the way through till the end because one idea has the power to change your life forever. Let's introduce Miha and then we'll bring him on the screen because Miha Matlievski, business coach, has forged his approach to helping entrepreneurs and business executives by using a monumental personal failure and eventual redemption to help get others where they need to go to find their personal success and fulfillment. A man who needs no big giant introductions because he's just crushing it and rocking it. And Miha, are you ready to rock the house here, my friend?
I'm always ready. I always say I was born ready.
That's right. You were born ready, my man. I appreciate it. You're live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you for being here and sharing with our audience your wisdom and your journey, man. It's been a very, very powerful one. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, honestly.
Absolutely, man. So let's dive right into the theme of today, which is ultimate alignment. So Miha, what does that mean for you? How has ultimate alignment impacted your life?
Oh, I mean, alignment really to me means being aligned with who I truly am. Yeah. So it started with a journey of getting to know myself and figuring out, because, we are influenced so much with, the media, the society, our friends, family, and so on, that at one point I really lost myself and, I started valuing things that were considered to be valued and so on. And the more I lost myself, the more I was aching inside. It was killing me from the inside. And so at one point it was just enough. And I started the journey of, getting to know myself. Really just, it was a dialogue between me at that time and a 5-year-old me, just questioning why this, why that. And I rediscovered myself, figured out, what are my true core values, core beliefs, priorities, goals in life, and so on. Found what I'm passionate about. That's a good story. We can dive in a bit later if you want, how I rediscovered what I'm passionate about. And then just being aligned. And then once you figure out what it is that who is you, and it's so easy to say yes or no to different things because
That's right.
they're either aligned or they're not.
Yeah.
It's very easy to let people in your life because they're either aligned or they're
Mm.
not, and so on. So yeah, that's what alignment means to me.
I love it. I love it, Miha, and especially the aspect where you were being programmed, so to speak, and directed by society, by external sources and influences. And it's like when you can really source yourself internally, listen to your own internal GPS, greatest possible self compass, then that's when like the passion, the purpose, the joy in life, the fulfillment really starts to flow through, man. So I hear that was a big transformation for you. And for Miha, for anyone who's just getting to know you, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are, what you stand for, and what your clients come to you for, man?
Oh, well, now everybody calls me fail coach. And it's not just what I do, it's really who I truly am. Like, fail
Yeah.
coach is who I am.
Mm.
And, often I get asked, like, what you help people, what fail more or what, and a lot of marketing experts ask you, like, why would you go with that kind of branding? Like, everybody wants to be successful and they want to succeed. But it's very easy explanation. If you want to learn how to walk, you first need to know how to crawl.
Yeah.
And the same goes with success. If you want to achieve success, I mean, I don't know that there is no single person in this world that was just lucky all the time. It's not possible.
Nope.
You can't just go success.
No.
I mean, for each even small success on the journey,
Mm.
you have to go through roadblocks,
Yeah.
bumps on the journey. And most people consider and talk about them as failures,
Mm.
or they even don't start anything because they already fear the possible failures coming up in the future. And so, as much as it's important to know the right things for success, and yes, I do teach those as well. I've had a lot of successful business ventures as well, but I also help people establish healthy emotional relationship with
Mm.
failure, because you are bound to be faced with failure on the road to success. And the thing is, I don't know, maybe this will sound familiar to you as well. So for things that are very common, let's say you want to learn how to ride a bicycle. We all know how that goes. Like, nobody has gotten on a bike and started riding it straight away. You fall a few times, you get a few bruises, you dust them off, get back on the bike, and so on. We use a word, learning. Same, like, you learn how to drive a car, because again, nobody just sat in the car and started driving it on the first go. But then, things that we put very high emotional, positive emotions on, like, our business, it's something that will bring us freedom, let us spend more time with our family, travel more, things like that. We have high hopes. Relationships, you start dating somebody, and after a while you might see them as your future husband or wife. And again, a lot of positive emotions that you already see in the future, and starting a family together, and so on. And when we have high positive emotions on one end, when we don't achieve that goal, we go into very low, very low negative emotions. And then that's when we actually use the word failure. I mean, I never heard somebody say, oh, I failed at making a risotto, unless it was for a very important date. Then I failed at making the risotto. You see the difference?
Yes. Yes, dude, Miha,
So,
this is gold, man. So I really want to focus on, in this conversation, the healthy relationship with failure, with learning, and definitely get into your how did you discover your passion. But let's go back, man. Let's keep going back to where this journey really began for you. Your love for business, success in business. Tell us about that journey that led up to being a fail coach.
well, I'll make it a short one, and you just jump in and ask me anything you want. I mean, I'm a completely open book, but the journey was, 23 years long now, so I have a lot to tell, and we don't have the 12 hours just for ourselves. So I'll try to make it short and sweet.
Okay.
So yeah, I dropped out of high school when I was 17, and I started working for my father's company at 18. I was kind of son by occupation, and not really doing too much, not really learning about business, and everything was super great. Unfortunately, my father suddenly died when I was 23.
Wow.
And I had to take over. I was the only child. I had to take over the company, and I had no clue what to do. And of course, people nowadays ask me, like, why didn't you hire a CEO or something? Well, at that time, I didn't have a clue that you can hire a CEO. It was kind of like, okay, so it's my father's business. It's only natural that I take it from
over,
there.
yep.
Yeah, and I mean that was like 20 years ago. So no Facebook, no gazillion coaches online and mentors and mentorship programs or nothing like that. So it was a different time. We were learning things from books at that time and so on. So yeah, that's how the entrepreneurial journey, let's say, really started. And at first, I had a lot of problems, and then along the way, after about a year and a half, I was almost bankrupted the company. And at that time, I found, luckily, two people who saw something in me and were ready to invest in the company, get it back up, take over the CEO role, the financial role, and so on. And Miha, you go, you do your stuff. And that was kind of like my one of the first lessons that I didn't learn too much from it, because very soon things started going really well for me. I was always good with people skills, networking, communicating, sales, things like that. And so suddenly we were making 150% more revenue year after year after year, and the money was there, and I became cocky again. I was like, oh, I'm so amazing. And we had quite a lot of differences with the co-founders or the co-owners. Especially one of them was very heavy drinker, and for me that was a no-no.
Yeah.
So
before we move on, I want to talk about the cockiness, because I know that can be a challenge for a lot of people when they get success quickly or things start going well. What would you recommend to an entrepreneur who's listening right now to stay level-headed or humble and avoid getting cocky and overlooking things?
I have a reminder on my phone to this day, 3 times a day, and it says, stay humble, be grateful, and fail forward.
Wow.
Every morning, around 2 p.m. and every evening.
Yeah.
I never want to forget that. But it's really just being mindful about it. I don't think there's anything else you can do, but staying humble is really very important, because the moment you get too cocky, and I mean, I was 20 something, I was living the dream. I had amazing, paycheck and amount of money, driving BMWs, fancy restaurants, hotels, all of it. Like, it's very easy to get caught up in that moment. And then soon I started coming up with new ideas. I constantly see problems in the world, and I kind of constantly want to, fix them. So yeah, I started a few more companies, and before I was even 30, I had 4-5 successful companies.
Damn.
And by that time, my personal net worth was roughly around 15 million US. And then one of these companies was in real estate. I was doing this huge project, again, from the place of cockiness and greediness. I had no clue about how to, I never built a dog house, and I was doing this huge project. And of course, everything that could go wrong went wrong. And then the financial crisis came to Europe as well. And then there was one Monday, December the 7th, 2009, when I got a call in the morning from the bank. And they said, well, the prices dropped so much, we can't even break even with this project. We are stopping all the funding, everything. We want our money back. We are, giving up on the agreement. And Tuesday, December the 8th, I was bankrupted all my companies because everything was co-signed, because I really put all my heart in that project. And so all my other companies were bankrupted because they just took all the money from everywhere. I was left with bills, with paychecks that I couldn't pay out to my employees, suppliers, anybody. Like, it felt like the bank got the money, but I kind of owed money to half of my country. I mean, it's a small country, 2 million people, but it still wasn't a very nice feeling.
So what was the lesson? What would you do differently next time in that period?
Oh, so many lessons, so many lessons. I mean, even just how the whole contract was made, how I was managing risks, how I was managing the project, who I was hiring, who I was partnering with. I mean, like, there are like gazillions of lessons in just that one project. I mean, I could probably write an encyclopedia just on that one thing, what you can do differently. And yeah, so suddenly I lost everything. So I lost all my companies. I lost all my assets, my personal assets, companies, everything was lost. And I ended up $5 million in personal debt.
Damn.
And in Europe, at that time, I don't know, maybe the laws have changed, but at that time, if your companies went bankrupt and you were the owner and the CEO, and you couldn't pay the country the taxes and the employees the paychecks and so on, you were unable to make personal bankruptcy.
Wow.
So, and then the phone calls started every morning, 7:30. And those were not nice phone calls. I mean, if somebody said, oh, we're going to sue you, that was nice. I mean, most of the phone calls were really like mafia calls.
Dang.
We'll do this to you, this to your mom. I mean, I just had my mom left. I got divorced in that process. Like, literally, I lost everything. So not just the money side, not just the assets. Most of my so-called friends from all the cigar clubs and yacht clubs and Rotary clubs and all of that I can say, oh, those are my very good friends. We are spending all this money together, going to dinners and fancy stuff. Well, those were the first one that never answered my phone calls again. So I was literally all alone in the world with maybe just my mom and 2 or 3 close friends, and that was it. So I went from all of that being that big ass something to nothing.
Yeah, I'm curious, Miha, for someone who might be on the receiving end of, let's say someone goes through tragedy or some difficult situation, maybe we're not able to like contribute financially or something like that, but would just someone picking up the phone and saying, hey, bro, you're going to get through this, like it's going to be okay.
No.
Would that have made a difference for you though, or like what were you looking for?
No. You don't want. I mean, at least for me, that was the worst thing. Like, oh yeah, everything will be okay. Like, how the fuck will everything be okay? I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, you can totally. Yes.
Oh yeah, so like, how the fuck will that make everything okay? I mean, do you have any freaking idea what I'm dealing with? And like when you're faced with problems, and I need to say this here. Like, a lot of people, are amazed at the numbers.
Okay.
It's not about the numbers. It's about the emotions behind it and the negative self-talk. Throughout my work that I do now, I've met so many people who lost, like tiny bit of what I lost, but all the emotions were there. So at that time, you feel like your problem is the biggest problem in the world. You are the only one who is going through that. And somebody just patting your back, no, give me solutions, like tell me, like open a door for me, like give me something to work, like, like do something, just not done, just, at least that was my experience.
So problem solving, saying, hey, I know you're going through the shit. What is the next step? What can we do? How can we take the next step together? Like, what can I do to support you? Like, I'll brainstorm with you. I might not be able to do certain things, but what can we do? And just being there with you, trying to create solutions.
Yeah. But the thing was that, at that time, failure was even bigger taboo. And in Europe, failure is a much bigger taboo than in the US. And so the thing was that everybody was avoiding me, like, like I I don't know, eight. Like
Yeah,
everybody is just avoiding you. Nobody, like people who could actually do something,
yeah,
they were nowhere near. And you had people who were just going to their regular 9 to 5s. Like, how can a 9 to 5er help me in something as monumentally huge as recovering 5 million?
So how would you have changed, or what was the status of your emotional capacity, your emotional state, and what would you have done differently back then, knowing what you know now?
I mean, now I do things completely differently. It doesn't mean that I don't go through failures anymore. Now I actually love failure, and if I don't fail for a few days, that's something that worries me, because it means that I'm not pushing myself. When do you fail? You fail when you do something for the first, second time. You don't fail when you do something for the 100th time or the 1,000th time.
Right.
So now, not failing is actually a bad sign to me. So I'm not pushing myself. But it was like a complete brainwash, using very different techniques, like, balancing yourself emotionally and logically. So practicing him, and all of these soft skills, it's not as easy to learn them as, some of the hard skills. You have to really practice them for a while before you embody them. Mindfulness, because mindfulness lets you step away from the current moment, from the current emotion, and take a look at what's happening to you from a few different angles. And just the way I understand failure now, because at that time, that was a huge shame. I felt ashamed. I felt like I let everybody down. Even my father's company went bankrupt, the one he started. I felt like I let him down. And he was already dead, and so on. It was, you don't talk about it. You don't even say it out loud to yourself. You just have it in your head. Your head's like a nuclear reactor waiting to, go Chernobyl on you. And you just feel, like when you feel constipated, that feeling around your stomach. It's kind of like that, just much stronger. And when I was at home, it was unbearable to be with my thoughts. But then when I went out sometimes for a coffee with a friend, I was unable to be present at the conversation. And I was just thinking again, and like, oh, like, what's this person blabbing about the weather? I have these huge problems, and so
there was not a healthy coping mechanism with all of that emotion that got uprooted. And like, there may have been small little incremental things that triggered you, or you felt shame, or you felt guilt over the years, and you may not have processed them like in a super healthy way, because we weren't taught, right? We weren't taught how to do those things. And then it all blows up in this instance, and then you get to see, okay, like, how conscious am I really? How effective am I really with dealing with these? So you had to get through that phase in your life with what you had at the time.
Failure was something that wasn't an option. We were taught that from the young age, like, failure is not an option. If you fail, you are a failure. You start thinking in that way. Oh, I failed at one thing. That means that it's done. Like, what's there more to look forward in for this life? Like, obviously I'm a failure at business. I wasn't looking at it. Oh, I failed. Okay, let's try it again and do it a bit better. I mean, that realization came a few months later. I mean, I was then contemplating suicide more and more and more, and came very close to it a few times. And then one night at around 11 p.m. in 2010, I actually was already on the other side of the balcony, 5th floor. I was just ready to jump. And at that moment, I don't know why, but my mom came to my mind, and I really just said to myself very out loud, Miha, you fucking failed. You screwed everything up. And hearing myself loudly saying the word "you" was the aha moment, because what the next thought was, if I'm to blame, because one thing was, like, I was blaming everything that happened to me on everything else. And that was so empowering. And I started thinking, like, oh my God, if I now do things differently, if I learn, if I change who I surround myself with, if I do better due diligence on partners and this and that, I can do even better. If I did what I did with all those mistakes, imagine what I can do if I don't do them. And that was like kind of the breakthrough moment, or the aha moment, or whatever you want to call it. And then the first thing I did, I climbed back in, and I just started writing down everything that came to my mind. It was like a huge brainstorm of everything I need to learn, change, new habits. I mean, it was a huge ass list of everything I need to do. And then in the morning, the first thing I did, I started calling people I owed money to before they started calling me. And I was like, you know what? If killing me or throwing me with, those blocks of concrete tied around my legs in the water, if that's gonna help, come here. This is where I am. Let's finish it now. Because if this doesn't stop, I can't do anything. And it's not worth living this way. But if you want your money back, and I mean, honestly, I don't owe you just 3,000 US and I can just get a job and repay you in 6 months. No, I owe $5 million. I need to do something huge. So if you can't open a door or help me in any way, at least get off my back. Let's make an agreement. I'll call you once a month, give you an update. But outside of that one day, I don't want anything to do with you, hear you, or anything, because I need my peace in my head if I want to create something. And that's how the journey started. And I mean, it wasn't a short journey. It took me 3.5 years to really work on my personal development, on my business development. I mean, there was really a lot I had to work on. And then in 2014, if we fast forward a little bit, I started a new company, a startup. We were doing energy efficiency for big supermarket chains and for big hotel chains. Energy efficiency means helping them save on electricity and gas. We were the only ones in the world doing it in a special way. So our results were almost double what all the competition was doing. And I scaled that insanely fast in the first year, even more in the second year. And then I had my exit. I mean, yes, my share was very, very, very much diluted by the time of the exit. But I was able to repay almost 7 million, because in all those years, with all the interest and everything. And then I went on a huge ass long vacation, came back home, and I was bored to death. Like, what do I do now? Like, what do I do? Like, do I just go to the local bar and hang out with people who are there drinking beer? But that didn't sound too appealing. And it was then when I realized that, like, in all these years as an entrepreneur, I'm not just an entrepreneur by job description. That's who I am. I'm an entrepreneur, and I love hanging out with other entrepreneurs. I love, talking, brainstorming, helping, exchanging, masterminding, all of that. And I just went to the local startup incubator, volunteered that, and slowly the whole fail coach thing was born. And I started doing it more and more and more. And that's where I am today.
Damn, I love it. I love it, Miha. I love the journey, and there's like so much gold that you've already shared. And I want to dive in specifically in like what is it that you really cover in these sessions with your clients around failure? You've mentioned a couple different things around, being able to be in tune with your emotions, mindfulness, some other strategies. So let's dive in more what we need to know about failure, man.
I think the simplest way I can explain what I like, I'm not one of those coaches or mentors or like, oh, I'm just a coach, I'm just gonna ask you questions. I come from a place where I do my due diligence, what it is that you need, and then I'll give you what you need. And of course, if I know that I'm the right person to do that. So sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you're a coach, sometimes you're a mentor, sometimes you're just brainstorming with them together, an advisor. Like I do all those roles as they are needed. And a lot of time, it's not about the business strategies. I mean, yes, I can teach people about that as well. I'm very good in business development, CEO, leadership skills, and things like that. also setting up sales processes and just setting up processes, automatizations, and so on. So yes, I can do all of that, cash flow management and so on.
Right.
But most of the time, I see that that entrepreneurs at all the different stages. So I've worked with onepreneur just entering the entrepreneurial world, all the way up to 9-10 figure entrepreneurs, and it boils down most of the time to just a lot of personal coaching, a lot of life coaching, if we call it that way. Because the thing is, we all have our own inner demons, whatever they might be, and we have to deal with them. And things won't happen on the outside until we figure out things on the inside.
That's right.
And so most of the time, why somebody is not scaling as fast as they want, why is it they are not exiting, why they're not doing this or that, has less to do with the technical stuff. Yes, you have to add that bit as well, but it's more with what we are going through internally.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful to recognize we are at our roots. At our roots is what produces the fruits, right? Like I think T. Harv Eker, Millionaire Mind Experience, talks about that. The roots produce the fruit. So if we have roots to our masculine or feminine energy, parents, whatever we were taught, whatever it means, money, power, God, good and evil, all that kind of stuff, like that will shape our reality and whether or not we're able to create those kinds of results. So what kind of challenges do people usually come to you with? And you work with a lot of different people, but what are some of your favorite challenges to tackle, and how do you go about doing that in your conversations?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I started doing a lot of helping more seasoned entrepreneurs, 7+ figures. But I don't know, it just I wasn't feeling the passion. And so recently, this year, I moved almost completely. I still have a few of the one-on-one clients where I have to finish what we started. But I'm moving toward just really helping people who are just entering the entrepreneurial world. And the reason why I think is because I'm not an aspirin guy, like if you come to me and say, oh, I have a headache, I'm not going to give you an aspirin. I want to figure out the root cause. And the thing is, when I see entrepreneurs coming to me when they're already at 7, 8, 9 figures, it's because they didn't lay down the right foundation at the start. And so my thought was, if I can help people at the start to lay down really solid, really good foundation, then they can build as high as they want. They can stop at 10K a month. They can stop at 100K a month. They can go to 10 figures. If the foundation is there, and that's why my program is called Framework for Freedom, because every entrepreneur in this world, if you ask them, why did you enter the entrepreneurial world? I mean, I'm not going to say 10 out of 10, but at least 9 out of 10, they will tell you for the freedom. The definition of freedom is different. Somebody wants to travel, somebody wants to spend more time with the family, and so on. But it's freedom that we are seeking, and it's framework that we need. Where, it's almost like so many entrepreneurs, when they start out, it almost looks like when they are when you start building a house and you would start at the first floor, you would just skip the ground level and the foundation, and but that's what most of them do. They skip very important things in laying down the right foundation.
So what are some key elements and ingredients of that foundation to get right before we start building something big, a skyscraper, an empire?
So I have a 5-pillar system. And the first pillar is you, the entrepreneur. So we work a lot on all the right mindsets and techniques like emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and so on, because it's so important for making good and well-balanced decisions. Because, when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you need to be very logical. Sometimes you need to come from the heart. Best explanation would be when you're doing cash flow, that should be purely logical. But then when you are, talking to your team, inspiring your team, that needs to come from the heart. And, it's hard to balance all those roles. Because you're constantly on a daily basis. This is logical. This is emotional. This is balanced. This is this. This is this. And it's not easy. So we are laying down first the foundation in personal development. Then we do business development, which is really just lean approach to a business plan, because most of the entrepreneurs that I work with now are not startups in that sense where they would need funding. I mean, I did work a lot with startups as well, and I can help them get, the pitch decks together and this and that. But if you're just working for yourself, if you want to start your own business, you don't need that elaborate business plan. So we have a very lean approach, where we just really tackle first the product market fit. Because if you don't have a product market fit, if you can't validate that, I mean, you have nothing. So it's that. Once we have that, we go into the operational part, like the client journey, marketing, content, all of that. And then it's really about validating and creating the processes before the fourth pillar, we can start the growth and scale. And then the fifth pillar is entrepreneurship is a very freaking lonely job. And, we are mostly surrounded with unentrepreneurial people. I mean, unless you live in, LA and San Francisco and Chicago, where you have meetups every day, all day long. And so it's really a community where I bring them all together, where we have weekly brainstorming sessions. They love them because, they hit a roadblock, bam, they join the brainstorming session, bam, they have a solution, they can move forward. So we really fail fast and we fail forward. So the brainstorming sessions are fail fast, fail forward. And then, we have all sorts of different things like networking, accountability, and all of that. And I mean, just being surrounded with like-minded people who are also trying to achieve something, and it's very beneficial to every entrepreneur.
Yeah, the community is so freaking powerful, man. Like that's one of the greatest things about this 12-hour marathon is I get to have like great relationships with people like you, Miha, and other experts and people who are changing the world. It just constantly is fueling my fire, stoking the fire. And thankfully we have things like podcasts and watching YouTube videos, but that doesn't ever replace having a conversation. It doesn't ever replace, especially like if we can do face-to-face, man, there's nothing that beats that. So going to like live events, workshops, seminars, networking events in person, that's the best. But a lot of people don't have that luxury in their location. So I totally appreciate that you do it digitally too, man.
Yeah, so that's really those are the 5 pillars that we go through, and it's go at your own pace program. So some people go through it in 2 months. I mean, it really depends, how much leverage they bring to the table already. I mean, that's one thing that I super hate about people selling blueprints without telling that no blueprint can be completely copy pasted, because maybe you created a 7-figure business, but at one point a friend of yours was, I don't know, a huge Instagram influencer, and they mentioned you, and bam, like your funnel was a success. And then if I don't have that same person in my network, I can't replicate it. So that's why I stay away from the blueprint word. And that's why I'm giving them the framework, because if you use that framework, you can create any business. So I don't like, giving fish to people. I'd rather teach them how to fish.
That's right. So what's an active way that we can fail more in our business, in our life? Like how do you engineer that failure in a appearingly or seemingly safe way, or like a enticing way, a valuable way?
It's by introducing the concept of processes, measuring the steps, having good KPIs, and then benchmarking those results against either past results, future expectations, or industry standards or competition. So that's the key. When you have processes, even if it's a sucky process, and you can measure it, you can quickly see where you are, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Are the numbers there? Aren't they there? And then you can make very good decisions. I mean, the best way to do good decision making, and then you can react fast and change and pivot and all of that. But I mean, the foundation of every business needs to be proven, duplicatable processes paired with the KPIs. For the KPIs, you need to measure as much as possible. And then the full story comes with the benchmarking. That's the number one foundation. And of course, your first process will not be a good one. So I teach them so we learn the mindset of permanent beta. That way we take away the, everything needs to be perfect and things like that. And, I invite them to be childlike, to just enjoy it. To, like, I don't know, in one company, we were reworking the whole sales process. And I actually said to the whole sales team that if they bring a single yes until they do 50 calls, I won't like it. I want to hear 50 no's. But then we had a template with the reflection questions for each call. And the amount of progress, amount of learning about, objections, how things were done, what scripts was somebody using, and then pairing all of that together. And we had an amazing project manager on top of that, gathering all that information and filtering through what's working, what's not. And at the end, they had a sales process that was doing 3.5 times more conversion than before.
That's rad. That's
and
great,
that company went from a few millions to close to 20 millions in revenue.
Wow. Dang.
So it wasn't, like a startup at the beginning. It was actually a seasoned company, stuck at a certain level of revenue, roughly the same revenue for a few years. And then we did a complete revamping of the whole processes, especially the sales process. And they went to, I think it was like 4x, 5x on the revenue.
Yeah. Wow. This is incredible, man. What do you say to the entrepreneur who's below six figures, still at like the startup level, and they're getting like inconsistent results? I know you talked about processes and the foundation. What do you think might be missing from their foundation, or do you think it could be psychological? There's probably a lot of different things that could be going on, but what do you usually see?
We need to start always measuring things. Without measuring, we can't know what's really working, what's not. Because yes, I do have quite a lot of them who are making six figures, but it's like the revenue is coming each time from a different source. Like not different source, but they're making sales of whatever they're selling. But it's not a proven duplicatable system. It's not, I go on LinkedIn, I do this, I do that, and bam, there's a client. They're coming from all over the place. So we need to start measuring, and then usually we need to trim the fat, not add more, but trim out but you need to figure out what's the 80 that does, what's the 20 that does the 80, and then work on that. But again, you start with the measuring, you start with unloading all your processes. I call them processes 1.0. And then it usually takes my clients roughly between month and 2 months to really work on them, polish them, make them more efficient, test them out, measure them, KPI them, figure out which ones are really working, which ones are not, and then how to duplicate them and so on. So it's a process of going from, yes, I'm making some money, but it's like from all over the place to, okay, now it's almost like an on-off switch.
Yeah, that's gold. And I think that's what everyone wants in business. They want it to be predictable, repeatable, consistent, that they can just put their trust in it and their faith in it. And ultimately, it's to be able to step out of having to manage all those things themselves or execute the processes, be the technician, and have other people run it for them, right? It's like that dream of having total freedom,
I mean, that's how we start even in the framework for freedom. Of course, in the beginning, if you don't have the resources, you have to be the solopreneur, and you have to be an all-around person. I mean, if you don't have the money to outsource or create a team, that's how you start. But then we have that mindset that immediately after we start generating enough cash flow, we are reinvesting that back in creating the team, in creating the processes, and the end dream or the end goal is for you to be free. And the way I say it is, the freedom of money is the easiest one. I mean, it's not so hard to go to 6-7 figures, and for most people that's enough for having a nice life. Freedom of time is much more difficult because you need to learn how to let go, how to trust others that they will do things for you. That's where you create systems and processes and teams and so on, and you have employees. And then by achieving freedom of time and freedom of money, that's where the ultimate freedom comes, and that's the freedom of choice. Yeah. And then for me, it's all about, like, I love what I'm doing. I just said that the other day to a friend of mine. He said, well, you have all these calls and all these brainstorming sessions and all of that. He said, you know what? If I could just open Zoom and have it open 24/7, that would probably be my dream life. I mean, but I do have freedom to choose whether I want to do that or not. It's more about not having to do it, but you can choose whether and how much of that you want to do.
That's perfect, man. Take us to the place where you really got clear that this was the vision for your life that you wanted to live out: coaching, mentoring, facilitating people and growing their business. When did you design this version of you that's living out now? When did you create that?
It kind of happened unintentionally. I just my story got quite popular in Europe, especially in the country where I come from. And, entrepreneurs started calling me and asking me questions and, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And I just kind of fell into it. And the more I was doing it, the more I was enjoying it. And even now, many times, either investors approach me and say, oh, Miha, when will you start something new? We want to be there. Just say whatever you need. We are there. Or people ask me, like, with all this knowledge, why don't you create, 10 more companies and scale them, to 10 figures or above. But I don't know. It's just, I guess I'm a bit tired from that last scaling still. But it's not anymore about me. It's now I'm helping others. And instead of working on one company on my own, I can actually help hundreds of companies and help them build their companies on the right values, on the right foundation. And it's like instead of being the leader, it's creating leaders. And it's so fulfilling. And when you see I have quite a lot of success stories from my clients, and when you see people who came from this huge adversity, and now they're, not just making for themselves, but they're giving and helping others and creating jobs and all of that. I mean, there's nothing that can buy that fuzzy, warm feeling in your heart.
I love it. So your perfect day would be just keeping open the Zoom room all day long. And I'm sure you have more aspirations than that in terms of impacting and serving lots of companies. So can you tell us a little bit more about the future of Fail Coach and Framework for Freedom and all that you got going on? What are you excited about?
I started with the one-on-one coaching, and then I started seeing patterns. Same questions, same things started emerging. And I realized at one point that 80% of business is really duplicatable. I mean, it can be even in different niches, in different, it can be a service company, retail company, a production company. Of course, the production company will have a longer process and so on, but the principles are really the same. And then there's 20% that's kind of unique. And so I was thinking, how can I can only work with a few people one-on-one. So how can I leverage my time? How can I leverage my impact? And that's how we came up with Framework for Freedom. And we started that 4 or 5 months ago. We started it with roughly 50 people. And now in September, we will start enrolling more. I really wanted to do a test, how I can manage a big group of people and this and that. So kind of control scaling. So not to go too fast, too quickly. That's one thing. And then, of course, I already have ideas, because Framework for Freedom is to get you to that 6-figure income, which is okay for the most people. And then I already have ideas, from 6 above, and doing retreats. And, I already speak at conferences, do a lot of podcast interviews and all of that. So it's just building on top of that foundation, that framework for freedom, and then going forward from there.
And you have your own shows, right? Your own podcast, your own stuff that
Yes.
you produce. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, I mean, I have a podcast that's really called Brain Dump by the Fail Coach. And it really, the way it happened was, I constantly talk with entrepreneurs and they ask me a lot of the same questions. I'm like, why don't I just record something, put it somewhere? And when somebody asks me something, I'll just point them to that episode. And that's how it started. But then I started doing interviews. And so now it's a mix of my own episodes and interviews. And then the second thing that I do is LinkedIn Live. So enough to be invited into that small beta group to do LinkedIn Lives. And again, I'm now mostly doing interviews, but more and more people are telling me like, come on, share some of your stories, share some of your failures. So again, in September, I'll be starting sharing much more of my stories as well. And then a passion project that hasn't yet really started is Failures Anonymous, which is my vision is to be like AA meetings just about failure, small groups of people. Because one thing is very, I see it all the time. When you are faced with failure, you don't talk about it, you don't put it out, you keep it in. The moment you start sharing, but it's good to have that controlled, safe environment where you can really share. The healing starts. I mean, it won't solve it. You still have to then do the steps, but the healing starts, and that big rock falls off your chest. And so that's kind of the end goal, is getting Failures Anonymous to, my vision, my idea, what I want to achieve in this lifetime is to be the person who was able to break the taboo called failure. So I want to be the start of that. And I don't know if I'll achieve it, but I know that I will probably die sooner than stop going for that.
That's right, man. I love it. I love the mission, and to be able to free people up from the pressure, from the shame, from the guilt, from the quality of life. It like just steals people's lives away, hiding, playing small, trying to pretend, trying to avoid confronting it.
I'm sorry, but I'm so obsessed with failure. I studied it very well. Fear of failure is number one dream killer. And failure with entrepreneurs is the number one reason for suicide. After you face tremendous failure, number one reason for suicide. And tremendous doesn't have to mean gazillions. It can just be something that's highly emotional and creates a lot of negative self-talk.
Yeah. It could just be someone, a startup entrepreneur, trying to pitch their idea to a bunch of investors and feeling like they're hopeless and like there's no way that they'll ever succeed, and they got all this pressure and angst, and they choose to end it, man. So I see what you're doing is super, super beneficial for humanity, and also for people's ideas and visions and dreams to come to life, because how many people go to the grave with their dreams, with their visions still inside of them, their music still inside of them, not having been sung and delivered to the world, man.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why I'm constantly thinking how I can leverage myself, how I can leverage my time and all of that, and help as many as I can. And maybe one thing, if you don't mind me, you have the link below there. So if people go to frameworkforfreedom.me, it will really just take them into my chat bot. And once they're there, they just type "pick my brain," and they will see a calendar link where I constantly add new times for brainstorming sessions. So I do this free brainstorming sessions. Anybody can join. They can just come and hang out with me. We can talk, about the stories or things like that, or they can come up with questions, and I bring also other experts in. So I do brainstorming sessions with my clients. That's separate. And then this is like open to public brainstorming sessions where I try to bring all the 23 years of all the failures, all the successes, all the work with other clients as well, because in the past, I worked with over 3,500 entrepreneurs or companies already. And so, it's like whatever you're experiencing, I'm almost sure that I had a client or it happened to me in the past, and we might have an idea what you can try, what you can test to bounce back quicker and move forward. So everybody's really invited to do that if they want. They can just click the link that you just posted, and then all they have to do is write. What did they say? Pick my brain. So just pick my brain, and the chat bot will take it over from there.
Love it. I love it. Miha, so they go to www.framework, the number 4, freedom.me, and that's how they can get access to that.
Yeah. Even if they don't use the number 4 and they type in 4, it will take them there as well. I was my marketing guru was pointing that out to me. You should better buy both domain names so that it doesn't make any confusion. So yeah,
that's great. That's great, man. Okay, so they can go there and get a Pick Your Brain session. That's awesome. How else can they stay connected with you? Where do they find you on the internet and social media?
Well, I mean, most of what I do is trying to give as much value as possible. So I'm most active on LinkedIn. So that's number 1. I do twice a week. I do these interviews. And like I said, in September, I'll start sharing other content as well. So that's kind of like my main hub for the content. And the second one is my podcast. But, we're on Facebook now, so they can connect with me on Facebook. And probably in the near future, I'll come up with, ideas how to share some of the content on Facebook as well. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll create some new stuff just for Facebook. But, you can't be on all platforms, be on the ones that feel the best for you. Right. And I really love that live feature. And it's not overcrowded because you just have, I think it's like 200 or 300 of us in the whole world that have that access right now. I think I'm the only one from Eastern Europe. And so, I just love that platform.
That's epic, man. So remind us the podcast name one more time, because this is also going to be going out to podcasts. I know we have some listeners. So
Brain Dump by the Fail Coach. And it's on 12 different platforms, anything from iTunes, Google, Switcher, Stitcher, Spotify, all of those main ones.
Beautiful, man. I love it. So everyone search for that podcast. Definitely subscribe, because Miha's just giving away all this great gold, and join him on a conversation. Miha, thank you so much for being here. We're going to wrap it up with the final takeaways, the 60 seconds of fire, of empowering people to be their greatest possible self. What do you want to leave them with, man?
Oh, I always use the same thing, and that's what I have for my reminder. And it's like, just stay humble. It's really important. Stay humble. Be grateful. When I say be grateful, it's not just about being grateful. It's also, we are always trying to have more resources than we actually have. We are always in the lack of resources. Even Apple doesn't have unlimited resources. And we focus on that instead of being focused on what we have right now, what we can work with. So my understanding of being grateful is not just saying, oh, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. Even that's an important grace as well, but also working with what you have. And then, just fail fast, fail forward. Establish that healthy relationship with failure, and fail fast, fail forward, because success is just around the corner.
Yes, it is. Miha, you're a champion, man. I appreciate you being here, bringing the wisdom, the energy. You're a powerhouse, man. Thank you so much for all that you've shared with us, man.
Thank you, Chris. And of course, I'm looking forward to having you on both my LinkedIn Live and my podcast in the near future. So you're coming to that as well. So
we're doing it. We're doing it, man. I appreciate you, and have the best day ever. We'll see you soon. Okay, Miha?
Take care. Bye-bye.